Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namah. So, welcome to you all, Pranam, and we're happy to be sharing yet one more day together in our journey, which in itself is the goal, right? Yesterday we were having a very nice morning conversation with a dear sister elder from the Balab Sampradaya. She was mentioning how in their conception, which is in this case I won't say very different from ours, it's like the journey. This is common quote that sometimes may sound cliche, but it's very profound. The journey is the destination, right? In other words, we are not on a journey to reach a destination, and once we reach the destination, there is no more journey. But we are an ongoing journey. So every single step of the journey not only is a journey, but is the destination. So we already arrived at our destination, which is to be in an ongoing journey of ever-evolving love, of ever-evolving dedication, of ever-evolving discovery and rediscovery and rediscovery of reality in ever new facets. So yeah, though we are meeting every single Saturday, same time, same link, same faces, nothing of those sames are the same, right? It's always new because the journey is never in the same part of the landscape, and we continue to enjoy the ride, so to say, instead of being anxious about arriving at the goal and when will the journey be over, so I finally reach what? We can only reach a deeper experience of the journey. Let's put it that way. No? If there's something to be attained, it's a new level of participation in the ride, in the ongoing journey that is spiritual life, Krishna consciousness, Bhakti, divine love, however we may like to call it. So very happy. That's basically all that to say. Very happy to be on the journey with all of you. So we are here still in North Carolina, and we have a few raised hands, so we can begin with the first one from Sherry.
Pranams, Maharaj. My question, and bear with me because I get a little tripped up sometimes, being as that I'm still quite new to all of this. I'm just curious to ask about some of the differences between ISKCON and the Gaudiya Math. I guess I'm curious about the Gaudiya Math. I don't know a whole lot about it. I kind of get bits and pieces from people. I've asked people, and I can take it so far, and then I just start to get very confused. I guess at the bottom of the question is I'm curious if there's any key major differences in the teachings and the philosophies. I mean, I know it's all Gaudiya Vaishnavism, but, coming in through ISKCON, I didn't really know a whole lot about the other part of it, the Gaudiya Math. So I was just wondering if you could maybe speak to that a little bit and really break it down in the simplest of ways, or maybe recommend some reading or a chart I could look at or something.
Yeah, thank you. Well, to begin with, thank you for the question. So let's clarify a few terms, right? And I don't want to go too much into that in the sense of, okay, what's ISKCON first? And as I the other day reshared some post I wrote last year, ISKCON is the melted heart of Prabhupada. So we have to redefine everything from the root, maybe, right? So instead of just thinking about ISKCON or Gaudiya Math as mere institutional structures, right? That's a particular late shape that they take, but there is so much behind. But a very simple, but I will say important way of clarifying things first is that when we say ISKCON and Gaudiya Math, you are not only saying that, Sherry, almost everyone speaks in those terms, but technically speaking, that's wrong. Why? Because Gaudiya Math is the mission founded by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So at present, there is no single Vaishnav group that is part of the Gaudiya Math per se, because what we have now are different missions that came from that mission called Gaudiya Math. You follow my point? So, of course, nowadays, Gaudiya Math is used to refer to all the missions that came from the Gaudiya Math, apart from ISKCON. In ISKCON language, probably, mostly in ISKCON circles. But technically speaking, again, all of the missions that we have today, springing forth from, whatever, coming from the original Gaudiya Math, are as branches from the trunk as ISKCON is. You follow? So if let's say, I don't know, we have Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mission, Sri Chaitanya Math, Sri Gopinath Gaudiya Math, Sri Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti, so many of these sub-branches or branches that generally are called as Gaudiya Math. One of those branches is called ISKCON. You follow my point? So ISKCON is as much Gaudiya Math as all the other groups, because all of them are, let's say, a second generation after the original Gaudiya Math founded by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So just to put that in context and proper chronological unfolding. And for me, this is not just a technical clarification, but also a way of creating, cohesiveness among these groups. Because if not, we create this idea of, okay, Gaudiya Math is on that side of the river and ISKCON is on this side. No? But actually, all of these groups are sister organizations, sister groups, all of them coming from the same mother, from the same womb, if you want to call it, called Gaudiya Math. And of course, when saying all this, still we are not talking about all that Gaudiya Vaishnavism is. Just to do justice, that's not everything. I mean, Gaudiya Vaishnavism is not only Gaudiya Math and its branches. And of course, there are branches coming from those branches and sub-branches and so. But before or apart from Gaudiya Math, let's put it that way, we have so many other groups which may not be that much organized institutionally as the Gaudiya Math had on its subsequent branches, but still constitute different, sometimes it's called paribars or families or lineages. Sometimes the expression used is traditional paribars, though I do not use that term that much because it gives the idea, okay, the other ones are not so traditional and creates this, the traditional are more bona fide, the other ones are less, and I don't see it that way. But we have all these lineages coming from, I don't know, Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar Pandit, Nityananda Prabhu, Narottam Das Thakur, Shyamananda Pandit, and so on and so forth. Many, many lineages stemming from different associates, contemporaries of Sri Chaitanya, which in time became their own, they have their own paramparas, they have their own lineages of guru-disciple succession, which is not necessarily the same lineage from which Gaudiya Math and all its branches are coming. Right? With this, I'm not saying one is better, other is worse. I'm not going there. I'm just saying we have a big a big tree, right? The trunk, sometimes it's Mahaprabhu is the trunk of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, but in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, Mahaprabhu is the trunk, and there are so many branches, Advaita Acharya, Nityananda. This is described in this language in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? These close associates of Mahaprabhu are described as the main branches of the trunk, but then are other sub-branches described, and the tree keeps expanding, of course, no? So there are different branches coming from the branches and so on. So that first to begin with, right? To make justice to the whole Gaudiya constellation and not being, how to say, sectarian in terms of only those groups from the Gaudiya Math are the bona fide ones and all the other ones are deviations, or the other way around. Some people may think everyone except those coming from the Gaudiya Math are bona fide. We have all those varieties in this spectrum of public opinion in the Gaudiya community and beyond. But of course, there are deviations in the character of different people, different lineages of groups. There are proper representatives and bona fide teachers and teachings in all of those branches, right? In general, I'm not saying some deviations may not happen here and there. Of course, that's another conversation. But in general, there is the tree of Mahaprabhu is big enough. And yes, in each one, naturally, different, as literally in a tree, you can have a tree and different branches, and in different branches, maybe certain birds will go to one branch and make a nest there, some others will make a nest in, and gradually each branch may look even a little slightly different from the other branch, though they are part of the same tree. So in time, as each particular lineage unfolds, they may have differences, but I wouldn't say strong differences to create like an absolute opposition or cut, or say you have nothing to do with us. But they may have differences in approach to the practice and how they do certain things in certain mood, in certain emphasis, depending on the individual acharya or guru that have certain particular style, if you want to put it that way. And again, all that is normal, right? We cannot expect like every single person in every single group and branch are like a copy of the previous one. That will be concerning. That will be concerning for me. But to find diversity due to the individuation of the different members, that's what we are expected to see. As long as that happens, again, in a parameter of coherence, so to say, aligned with the teachings and there may be some differences, but again, I wouldn't say there's this difference between ISKCON and the Gaudiya Math, because the Gaudiya Math is not one single thing, as I already say. Even ISKCON is included there. But even if we want to speak for the sake of this question of ISKCON as a separate thing, all the other Gaudiya Maths, if you want to use the term, each one are different from each other also. And they have the different moods and nuance. Okay, they may sing more similar songs between themselves than some of the ones sung in ISKCON, but they have their own different songs and other things. And again, each one is I would say, universe unto itself. I've had the fortune of getting to know in some detail some of these Gaudiya Maths and some of their acharyas and gurus and members, and be living in their quarters at times in India or in other places. So you get a glimpse of how they do things, or which are their main emphasis and perspectives, and of course it doesn't mean that in every math or mission everyone thinks in the same way. I mean, you have been more familiar with ISKCON. I don't think it's fair to say everyone in ISKCON thinks like this, or that thinks like this, or feels like that. Everyone is a copy of each other. And then you go to another math and then you find something totally different. It's, as I like to say, sometimes someone in ISKCON may be more aligned in mood with someone in another math than with someone in ISKCON, and vice versa. So at the end of the day, we cannot make those hard lines between one group and the other. Of course, I know that sometimes the background of this question, or even the background of this division, is some things that at some time Prabhupada may have said at his time, in terms of listen to me and don't go so much to listen from the Gaudiya Math, and I'm being very general because also he said different things, as we know, in regards to Srila Siddhar Maharaj. He said, Srila Siddhar Maharaj is my Siksha Guru, and when I'm no longer here, you listen from him, you will get so much benefit. I mean, there are, again, Srila Prabhupada said many things to different people in different circumstances. But I can understand why at some point of the development of his disciples, he considered if they are confronted with too much diversity or even slight diversity of how we are trying to do things, they may get confused. It doesn't mean that they are bad, that they are wrong or deviate. It's just that my disciples may not have the capacity to deal with diversity too much. And it's okay. Again, it makes sense that at some times of the journey, we need just one version of it all. No? How this is done, how to think, what to do, give me the formula. Okay, now I can have my firm faith in place and practice and be sure. And that's glorious in its own way for that chapter. For another chapter, we need to break that mold. And that's what Prabhupada himself did, because eventually, though he was a little bit putting some fence in the beginning, just listen to me and remain here, gradually he then opened to that again when he was about to leave this world. And his disciples asked him, so after you are no longer with us, is there anyone we could go for Shiksha? He said, my god brother B.R. Sridhar Maharaj in Navadvip. No? So he opened those doors, and of course different things happened. One of those being many of them, of Prabhupada disciples, went to Srila Siddhar Maharaj expecting Srila Siddhar Maharaj to be like exact copy of Srila Prabhupada and to continue saying the same things in the same way. But of course that can never happen because no single entity is the same one as the other. So some of them were disturbed by that and confused and thought, oh, that's not what Prabhupada would say. This is something different. And they labeled that as something wrong or inferior or deviant, or at least something that is not nourishing my faith, and they took some distance. For some others, I've read testimonies of many saying, I felt Srila Prabhupada reappearing in front of me in the form of Srila Siddhar Maharaj. In essence, no, in form, they were different, but the spirit, no? So that will be the point for me, right? I mean, and again, as I repeated again, when we said, okay, so going back to ISKCON, for example, what's ISKCON? ISKCON is not one monolithic thing that everything is like this. There's so much variety into ISKCON itself. Now, ISKCON is, in my opinion at least, is a whole world of different constellations, although there may be some official institutional stances on certain themes or philosophical issues or whatever. In individual terms, each person is very different, each guru is very different, and what to speak of in another groups as well. So I don't know so far if that makes any sense, Sherry, or there's something else in connection to the question that you may like to.
No, that's really helpful. The tree is very helpful to be able to visually sort of picture that tree. And I think I just need to I think I just kind of want to explore a little bit more some of the other, missions. I'm just curious, not, just out of curiosity, just to know. So I can kind of see myself maybe using this diagram of a tree and kind of doing a little research. And I guess, when you were talking, I was thinking about Christianity, right? I mean, you could say this about so many other religious philosophies also. Like Christianity, there's so many different branches of Christianity, and kind of a core belief, but just different ways of expressing it as well, and differences between. So I definitely helped, because I think in my mind, I was kind of seeing it as like ISKCON, Gaudiya Math, like it's this big other entity. So yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you.
No, thank you. Yeah, and at the end of the day, for me, again, I always go to the idea of radical personalism in terms of, at the end of the day, we have people behind all these words, right? all these big words, ISKCON, Gaudiya Math, this group, that group. It's not just a label, but there's people behind, individuals which are unique and have their, so we have to take the time to contact that and not just judge everyone inside under that label as this or as that. That's again forms of impersonalism, in my opinion. And one book that comes to my mind that it's very nice in terms of exploring some of these nuances, not only for Sherry but for whomever will like it, although it's more related to the main disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who founded eventually all these different Gaudiya Maths, if we want to call it that way, including ISKCON. It's a book by Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj, and the book is called My Beloved Masters. So, and I think the subtitle is something like The Incomparable Commanders of Srila Prabhupada's Army. Now they like to speak in those terms. Srila Prabhupada in this case refers to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So it's a book where he speaks about each one of many of the main disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our Srila Prabhupada, again, because outside of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada is a term for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Siddhar Maharaj, Srila Puri Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesha Maharaj, all Bhakti Bon Maharaj, many very special disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur that, yeah, for me it's beautiful just to get to know about their existence. And again, it's still limited to disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So I don't want to sound sectarian in terms of, okay, only from that part we have saintly people, because that's not the case, right? Someone is asking for the name more direct. I will let me put it 1 second in the chat. Okay, let me see if I can have, okay, here I have a link for Amazon. That may even help more. You can get it there. Yeah. And there are many other books, like OBL Kapoor. He has his book, The Saints of Braj. Here speaking there about different personalities from other lineages outside of the Gaudiya Math, in this case, mostly. Saints of Bengal, he wrote another book. So anyhow, yeah, there's lots to appreciate. So thank you for the question. I hope that helped. Okay, next. Raise hand, Bhakti Rasa.
Yeah, Maharaj. So it seems you've stirred up a hornet's nest with your article, with the.
It's not mine.
I know. With the post of Krishna Chandra's article on the half value of a woman, and there's so many places that we could go with the comments that came out of it, but to me it seems valuable to discuss about disagreement and normalizing disagreement and how it's okay, and it's even okay to consider another person's opinion as being wrong, but still maintain a respectful stance towards that person. And so, yeah, about disagreement and normalizing that, because it seems without that there will just be fear-based silence, and people not being willing to speak out, to ask questions, kind of, like the barrage of comments that were made on Facebook simply by posting such a thing as that article. It's like you set yourself up with a target simply because people disagreeing is not normal, and it's okay to disagree. Some kind of discussion, some comment, way to think about disagreeing.
You already started giving a good comment to the whole thing, so you can continue. But yeah, thank you. So yeah, a few days ago, I shared, for those who do not know, an article written by Krishna Chandra Prabhu from Switzerland on this line from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where the 4 Antaranga Bhaktas, or intimate associates of Mahaprabhu, are described in terms of 3.5, which is Swarup Damodar, Ramananda Roy, Sikhi Mahiti, and Madhavi Devi. So the half associate will be Madhavi Devi, who is considered a woman. And sometimes there has been some controversies to why a woman is considered half, basically, right? And if on top of that, generation after generation in the Gaudiya community, there has been considerable misogyny and chauvinism, it makes sense to try to put all these pieces together. So I felt it was a good article to share, which actually ultimately was not only about that particular line, in my opinion. And today I published a video. You can see it on my YouTube channel. I just shared the link in the chat about some further reflections on that article. But for me, the main thing of the article is a probability of cultural influences in the way the teachings of any lineage are spread at any given time and circumstance, and also possibility of great saints saying inaccurate things or committing mild mistakes, and that not being a compromise in their inner standing, and how much we are able to entertain that possibility without that damaging our faith, basically, without the need of condemning whomever may be even suggesting that. And of course, when saying all this, I'm totally clear that not every member of the community is ready for such a conversation. And it's okay. No, it's not that, okay, someone came to the temple 2 weeks ago, and let's talk about the possibility of a guru being mistaken in some things. Again, as I say before, for them, maybe the guru needs to be over-idealized and over everything. No, and everything is absolute. And if the guru mispronounces a word, the dictionary has to be changed. And if he seems to make a mistake, that's a lila. He's putting us to test. That can never happen. I'm not condemning that. Again, I'm acknowledging at some part of the journey, as a child, right? The child thinks my dad is the best dad of the world, probably the only one, the only bona fide one, right? Like I think I told you this experiment that was made some time ago with kids, and they made them play a game. And after playing the game, the kids were like 4 or 5 years old, and they asked the kids, so do you know who created the rules of this game? Who invented this game? And they were like, without the thought, like, my father, of course. No. Like for them, whatever has been created so far on earth is coming from that. No, and they need to think like that at that stage. That's my point. You cannot go to a 4-year-old kid, you know, your father has his problems actually also. No? He's fragile human being. No, he has done some wrong things, and you cannot go to a 4-year-old, but that's too much. So they cannot process that information. But at some other point, we need to entertain that possibility, right? So, and yeah, there comes the point that Bhakti Rasa is addressing, normalizing disagreement. I think we have a hard time doing that, not only in the overall Gaudiya community, but as human race. We tend toward polarization, and we tend to black and white thinking, and to we feel very righteous about our own opinions, and whomever doesn't fit there is necessarily wrong or inferior. We generally do not do so well with paradoxical thinking, which means two things may be correct at the same time, and they are very different. For us, it's more like, again, a very black and white, mind limited way of thinking, whether this is true or whether this other thing is true. As I always like to remind, for example, someone from the Sri Sampradaya will come to us and say, Krishna is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they are correct in their own way. I mean, we will say no, we don't think like that, we disagree. we disagree. We consider Krishna the source of Narayana, and we have our way of justifying that, and that will take us to the spiritual world. And the Sri Vaishnavas will think Krishna is an avatar of Narayan, and that idea will take them to Vaikuntha. So how wrong are they if they are going to eternity by thinking like that? How much we can say they are not correct? But that doesn't mean we are not correct. You follow? So then you have to entertain two simultaneous opinions who are different in one level difference, being correct both of them. Or even in the Lila and Golok, as I like to say, Yashoda wants Krishna to have a sound sleep at night because she feels he's totally tired after playing with his friends and all that stuff. She's not aware of Krishna's romantic life. And the gopis do not want Krishna to sleep at all. They want him to join them in Rasa Lila every single night. So we have difference of opinion in the Lila between Radha and Yashoda. Do they hate each other? No, they love each other. So we want to enter into that realm where you have differences of opinion for eternity, and you love the person you are having an eternal difference of opinion with. So we better get properly trained over here if we want to enter such a place. So sometimes I don't see we do that well with that. And for me, that's very basic Gaudiya Vaishnav communication skills set, right, in the toolkit. But again, I know it's not easy at the same time, but it's necessary to open myself to differences of opinion, to acknowledging someone else's someone else may be right, and that doesn't necessarily make me wrong. Because again, we have this dualistic thinking many times. If someone is right, it means everyone else is wrong. That's how dualistic mind operates. Two people cannot be right at the same time. So if you are right and your idea is different from mine, that means I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, problem. Because probably I'm not wrong. I learned this from someone else. So that someone else is wrong and the whole thing is a hoax. No. Probably all of you are right. So I think we need to become more, in my personal opinion, and I'm including myself in that equation, to get more and more educated in how we can interact and have conversations. And this post was relatively civilized in that sense. I feel there was lots of civilized, we have strong disagreements. And at one point, one of the devotees say, I don't, with a good heart from a good place, why we are fighting about this? And I felt like we are not fighting. We are just having a strong disagreements of some things, and we are sharing our thoughts, but I think in a very relatively respectful way. So that's very important. That's for me is a sign of a very healthy society or group or family, that diversity is not only tolerated, right? Okay, we are different. I think I can bear that. I can deal with, I can tolerate you being different, but I can appreciate your contribution and I can love you because of that. And that's another level of coexisting with disagreement. So it's a whole culture of disagreement, and getting enriched by each other's perspectives and getting to develop all these qualities that Mahaprabhu invokes in the third verse of Shikshastakam, his golden rule: respect, tolerance, humility, not being anxious to be right, don't be righteous. And not falling into the temptation of labeling each other so quickly. That's one of the biggest anarthas, in my opinion. Not even our last, greed, all these classical ones, but this one, putting people in boxes, right? Labeling each other quickly, especially when we disagree. You are bad, you're aparadi, you're deviant, you are offensive, and then I cancel your very existence, so I no longer need to deal with you. because you, of course, belong to the aparadi box. So you're lost case. So that's a very unconscious way of not being vulnerable, not exposing myself to diversity and see what happens. It's a way of spiritual bypassing. And I will say that's a way, we were talking the other day with Radha Madhav Prabhu. That's a way, that's gossip for me also. For me, gossip is not only, do you know what she did last night? That's gossip, but I would say that's a relatively harmless version of it in comparison to this, which is someone says something I disagree, and I start to label that person and brand that person as aparadi, as deviant, and talk about that person to others instead of talking to that person. Gossip is talking about people, not talking to people. And I see that so much. Now I cannot tell you how many times I hear coming people that say, no, Maharaj, there are these devotees who are saying about you this in this WhatsApp group on there. And I'm like, okay, it's their journey, but why they cannot talk to me directly? And I'm talking about me because it's what I know, but it happens among each one of us, right? It's so easy to talk about people instead of talking to people. And that's a form of gossip. That's a form of non-courageous interaction. It's a form of hiding. Again, it's not vulnerable. It's hiding, escapism. And that's the very first thing that Mahaprabhu advises Raghunath Das Goswami in his famous 3 verses. When Raghunath Das Goswami, here we have the Prayojan Tattvacharya. From the 6 Goswamis, from all the followers of Sri Chaitanya Dev, he is the one who embodies Prayojan, Prem Prayojan, the goal to attain, and he's in further detail all about Radha Dasyam, Manjari Bhav, we know, the most esoteric climax of the Sampradaya. And this personality, such a person once goes to Mahaprabhu and asks him, can you give me some personal instruction? So we are all on the edge of our seats wondering, what will Mahaprabhu tell to Raghunath Das Goswami? I mean, such a personality is Raghunath Das Goswami and such a personality is Mahaprabhu. What will be the result of their combination? What will be the instruction? And Mahaprabhu starts saying, Gramya Katana Sunive Gramya Bhartana Kahive. He tells, don't listen to gossip and don't speak gossip. That's how he begins. It's very interesting. Of course, he says some other things after about eating and dressing, and then he rephrases the 3rd verse of Shikshastakam. Then he said, Braja Radha Krishna Seva Manasa Karive. In your mind, serve Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. That's the end point, but it all begins with, don't gossip. And the idea is that these stages are cumulative. So you cannot expect jumping into verse 2 without having incorporated verse 1. No, I don't want to just, I want to serve Radha Krishna in my mind. Okay, but first, how are you doing with gossip? And how are you doing then with the 3rd verse of Shikshastakam? Because all those things have to be properly internalized to actually warranty that in a realistic way, coherent way, we are advancing toward all that. So for me, it's very interesting that one of the most important things that the most important person say to he who embodies the goal of life, Raghunath Das Goswami, is don't engage in gossip. And we sometimes do not unpack that. Say, oh no, I'm not doing gossip. I'm not like, which probably we are to begin with. But also we interpret these ideas in very reductionistic ways. Gossip means this. No, gossip means labeling people, putting people in boxes, speaking in conclusive ways, in absolutistic ways, rushing to put people in certain labels without giving them a chance to change, and as the perfect excuse not to have to engage with them on the difference of opinions that we may have. Labeling. And one of the main definitions of Bhakti, we have the official definition of Bhakti given by Rupa Goswami, right? Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1:111. Anyavilasita sunyam gyan karmadhyana vritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktirodhama. But that definition, Rupa Goswami is constructing on the basis of another previous verse, which is basically a parallel version of it. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam Tatparatvena nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesh sevanam bhakti ruchate. This verse starts saying, Sarva upadi vinirmuktam. You have to become absolutely free from all upadis, from all limiting designations. And generally we think of them as, okay, I have to be free myself from seeing myself as something that I'm not. Yes. But also you have to be free to labeling other people for what they are not as well. So this gossip that I'm talking about, this labeling people, this putting others in boxes, this rushing to conclude about the intention of others without even talking about them, without knowing them, falls into this category. Sarva upadi vinirmuktam. The beginning of Bhakti is we have to become utterly free from this labeling tendency toward ourselves, toward others, and instead we have to allow everyone to be all that they can be, and to give that chance. So, so yeah, these are some thoughts that come in terms of normalizing disagreement. I know it's not easy. I'm never using the word easy, but I mean, it's real. It's realism in the sense of we all know we disagree on so many things. We may not know each other much. If we just have like a casual Sunday feast, 20 minutes interaction per week, we may say we are friends and we love each other, and it's fine. But we know that if we are in a desert island, the two of us probably will start to get to know each other and we'll start to disagree on many things. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that's life. That's reality. So we want to confront reality as it is. I don't want like a fake version of it. I don't want a fake version where everyone thinks the same, feels the same, when we underground know we have differences, but we're afraid of presenting them because there may be some clash and people may stop liking me. We need to take that risk because that's what takes you to a real relationship. And again, for me, it's all about vulnerability. I like to share two paragraphs that Radha Madhav Prabhu shared in the post of the article in connection to this. He mentions the main intention of sharing the article, which I agree with, was to welcome a friendliness for accepting the existence of shortcomings of pure devotees and Shastra. Such acceptance is not at all based on hurt or doubt, but on actual strength, courage, and a deep knowing of the eternal value of vulnerability. In my humble opinion, most organized religions have wrongly put vulnerability on the black list of no-nos for awakened people. This is a huge disservice that comes with the vast dire consequences. The real way of love is, with all your vulnerability, you can still love God fully, and I still love you fully. This is not some sentimental quackery, but ABC knowledge of the true nature of love. So anyhow, I think at the end, at the root of all this is an invitation to be vulnerable, and of course, the fear of being vulnerable that most of us carry unconsciously even. So I think it's great services to bring to our conscious, to the direct awareness of the collective, our need to embrace vulnerability and what that entails and how that looks like, and to show up to honest conversation where when we have difference of opinion and when we have to confront each other in a loving way, hopefully, and not see diversity as an attack, as a threat. And again, not everyone is ready probably for that conversation, but many are ready for that conversation. Many need that conversation. So I think there is a place to normalize that and to give permission for those conversations. And for those who are not ready, okay, they are respectfully put somewhere else, and eventually they will be ready. And if they are disturbed by those exchanges, their seniors should tell them, this is not for you now, but that thing that is going on there is not bad. It's not wrong. It's just you cannot digest that yet, but it will come at some point. So you better appreciate that and not condemn that. So a few thoughts. I don't know if that adds to the conversation. It's an ongoing conversation, right?
I do have another aspect. I really appreciate what you've said, and you've said it before, and they're really important points. And I understand the value of honoring people's different perspectives. Like, somebody might see a circle and somebody might see a rectangle. And then we could say, oh, you're seeing two different things, but could actually be a cylinder, a three-dimensional thing where one person's seeing the end and the other person's seeing the side. So that's a matter of perspective. But is there a place where it's valid to, and acceptable even, to say that someone is wrong? Not just that they have a different opinion that, oh, I'll change my angle of vision, I'll see it that way and it will become right. But that it's actually objectively, if we can even use that word anymore in this society, if it's objectively wrong. And is that such a big deal?
Yeah, thank you. You actually included that in the initial question, and I didn't fully address that, but yeah, there is a place for that. And there is a place for, of course, you can say, in my opinion, you are wrong, because of course I may try to be as objective as I can, but I personally prefer to humble my own words by always saying in my opinion, because at the end of the day, it's our reading of reality. And we are trying the best we can, hopefully, in trying to contact reality and truth in the most unfiltered, sober way, free of bias and agenda, though some stuff may get in the way. So I think it's always healthy to keep that, to qualify our statements with, in my view, or in my opinion, or in my capacity of perception so far. I think that's wrong. And we can, of course, make our case, like, of course. And I know that we live in times where it's even complicated to say that. If I say, in my opinion, the Nazi Holocaust is wrong, and I know some people will, well, that's your opinion only, or that's how you know it's wrong from the this and that. That's so, and I think we can make a case for that, saying it's not good to kill people, to kill innocent people. And again, we go back to the ideas of goodness, and this, in Christianity, they will have their own commandments. We will have ours that settle for an idea of morality, of what's good or bad. Because if we don't have any idea about that, then anything can be anything. It can become a serial killer, and it's good in my perception. And again, we have to have some objective moral sense of moral justice and so on. But the main point I want to say is that even if I conclude, so to say, this is wrong, as they will say, hate the sin, not the sinner. I mean, and we are not talking about hating anything, actually. But even if you are doing something that I consider that to be wrong, that's very different of putting you in a box forever, right? So, yeah, there's place to say that's wrong, and there should be a bigger place to still love that person that is doing something wrong, which many times we don't go there. We just end up in the part that's wrong. And many times that's wrong means not only what the person said or did was wrong, but the whole self of that, the whole being of that person is somehow rotten. So that's for me what I consider very dangerous. Because of course we are all imperfect. So who is free from making a mistake? Krishna says in the Gita, every action includes some form of imperfection. So better we relax with this idea of pointing who is wrong, because we are all wrong all day in one level. But the problem is that sometimes we kind of, what's this word in English? We kind of reduce the being to the acting. So if you do something wrong, you are wrong ontologically, and there is something wrong with you in your makeup, and everything clashes down into one same thing. So, and you put that person in a box, no? Offensive, aparadi, deviant, sinner, wrongdoer, whatever. And your heart closes to the prospect of that person changing, to your prospect of being compassionate to that person, of being loving, of trying to help, of gaining a wider understanding, of being willing to question your own conclusions about the person. So all those possibilities are shattered the very moment we put that wrong label with capital letters, right? And I see that happens a lot everywhere. Again, and I'm not saying I'm free from that, just to humble my own words. So we need to work on that. It's such a that's a I mean, we should normalize that tendency as in the conditioned world we live in. But normalizing that doesn't mean not doing anything about it, but working on that, but with compassion. So yeah, there is place to say you are wrong and still I love you. Yes. In my opinion, you are wrong. Actually, today in the morning I was having a conversation with two friends that I love, and they are my friends. And I was telling them, I deeply disagree with you. And in my opinion, this thing you are saying is not only wrong, but dangerous. But at the same time, I love you. I mean, one thing doesn't cancel the other. That's the thing, no? And of course, I'm not putting myself as an example. Then I may say that I'm failing in walking my talk. But I know that's how it's supposed to happen. Though I may be far from fully realizing that. But we should be mature enough to reach that point where I feel I really feel you are wrong on this, because of this, and this. But that doesn't mean I hate you. That doesn't mean that I won't talk to you. That doesn't mean that our relationship is over because we have a philosophical disagreement, which also has happened to me. People who is willing to walk away from a relationship because we have a Siddhantic diversity there. So it's okay. That's part of me also accepting that diversity. But I think we should, grow into our conversations and relationships and be able to include these elements and not exclude. Again, being inclusivistic, not exclusivistic. So that's Bhakti is all about integration. So it's integration of suffering, integration of imperfection, integration of differences, and integration of people that I consider wrong, but I can integrate in my life. I can still save a place in my heart for them, even as I deeply disagree with them on some things. I think we all have experience of people we love deeply and we disagree deeply with them on some issues, not necessarily on everything. I hope we can find some example of that. No. I hope we do not only love people that only agree with us on everything, because that's a little bit unnuanced. And as I like to say, or to think, that takes away the possibility of unconditional love. Because I only love you as long as we agree on everything. I remain in relationship with you as long as you are not having a difference of opinion from me. Or I only surrender to my guru as long as he or she is absolutely perfect in everything and never makes even a mild mistake. Then I love you and I surrender. That's conditional love. What if a small mistake comes? Then you leave the whole thing? You leave the relationship? You no longer love and surrender that person? That's it. Again, that's the definition of conditional love. The condition is you be perfect, you agree with me on everything, and I love you. That doesn't sound too loving for me, at least. So unconditional love means we disagree on things, as we should, and we love each other on top of that. That's real integrative love. Of course, by this I'm not trying to justify any grave abuse that someone may be doing, and because I love you, we continue and I support you in that. I'm not saying that. But I think there's lots of place and space available and waiting for us in terms of developing this unconditionality. We all like to speak about unconditional love, but then when we play out the implications of that, that's a different game. Because it entails that. It entails loving and giving ourselves to people even despite disagreements, and making our love stronger, more nuanced, including diversity. As I gave the examples what's going on in eternity, and I just gave a few of them. It's full of them. They have daily discussions and counter arguments in different groups in Golok, and they deeply disagree on so many things. But it's all somehow nourishing the love, and everyone increases their love for Krishna. So that's possible. That's my point. We have a reference point. It's possible. So now the challenge is how to integrate difference in a way that increases my love. Not how do I eliminate all diversity and the people I have a disagreement with so I can increase my love. That's not how it works. Real love is nourished by everything. Vishwanath Chakravarti gives that example of the lion. So a lion is walking and an elephant stands in the way of the lion, attacking the lion, and the lion is an obstacle. What does the elephant with that obstacle? He's nourishing from the obstacle. He eats the elephant and continues. So this to say, love is like the lion advancing, and obstacles come, obstacles in the form of differences of opinion. What does the love do? Integrates that and gets nourished and strengthened by that. It's not like, oh, that's an obstacle, let's do away with that because that will weaken our love. That's not love. That's something else. Real love, again, is courageous, is vulnerable, is willing to integrate, is inclusivistic. Yeah, anyhow. Seems that's the topic of the week.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was a missing key, a missing point for me. I think that it's that it's okay to see things as wrong and to own that ourselves. And a phrase that kind of came up as you were speaking also is according to how I understand it, or according to what I know. Like that's how we can frame our own, opinion in a way.
Yeah.
According to how I understand it.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, even if we quote Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu, we are quoting our own understanding of that.
Exactly.
You cannot escape from pratyaksha, from your personal experience. Because we can quote the same verse from the scriptures, and one is quoting this one verse to justify one thing and the other to justify the opposite, according to their own reading of the scripture. So it's the same verse. We're quoting Shastra, but which is the experience, which is the reading, which is the interpretation of that. And so there's always interpretation. So an interpretation doesn't mean that it's necessarily wrong. Again, in Golok Vrindavan, let's use that word. Every devotee interprets Krishna in different ways. We can use the word experience, no problem. Experiences Krishna through the lens Yashoda of Vatsalya Bhav, another from another lens, and they see different realities, right? Of course, they are all right there. No, we are not saying they are wrong, but they have difference of opinion. Of course, here we are conditioned beings. We may be filtered with an artist and have mistakes, and we have to be willing to acknowledge that. But also we should be very careful not to bring that conditioned thing quickly. Conditioned thing, I mean, if someone is talking, it's like, who you think you are to speak? You are a conditioned soul. You cannot say anything properly because you are not enlightened. I mean, if you bring that card to the table, your very own words get canceled immediately. Because who you think you are, then you are an enlightened soul that can tell me that I'm not an enlightened soul, and we can go on like that forever. And that's circular reasoning, and we don't go anywhere. So also, yeah, that's very disempowering to just tell everyone, do you know what, guys? All of you are not enlightened, so your opinion has no value. You are all partial experiences of reality, so better shut up, don't say anything, and just accept what's the ultimate revelation. But then again, the quote comes, how do you know what's the ultimate revelation if all of us are absolutely unenlightened? At the end of the day, we accept something as absolute revelation based on our own personal experience. So we have to trust on some level our personal experience. You cannot just cancel that altogether and disempowering a whole community in the name of faith. So yeah, which doesn't mean either to allow anything and everything, right? So yeah. Some dialogue, some conversation is always required. And acknowledging, again, we may disagree, and we may disagree on something for a long time, for a lifetime, for eternity, as we gave some examples, and we should be okay with that. No, we shouldn't feel the pressure that everyone has to agree with us, that we have to agree with everyone. We don't have to feel that pressure to conform, to be a yes person. Also, we shouldn't be a rebel without a cause, of course. No, like whatever someone says, I will say the opposite always. It's not about that. But entertain the possibility of diversity, no? Be it a bit. Unity in diversity. So there's so much that we are united with. There's so much common ground we share. And on that foundation, we can entertain diversity. And a healthy appreciation of diversity, so it becomes an ornament. It doesn't become a cause of constant labeling, constant judging, constant again boxing, no?
Conflict.
Boxing, putting people in boxes, boxing. Yeah, conflict. That may continue to happen again. That's an ongoing tension, because for some people, some things will be seen as that according to their level of consciousness. It's unavoidable on some level, but there are many other degrees that are avoidable. So hopefully we can avoid what's avoidable and engage in meaningful conversations with differences of opinion, and show that it's okay, and we can have those talks, and we can love each other, even if you think that the soul fell from Vaikuntha, and I deeply disagree with that. It doesn't mean that I will say that you are an absolute deviant who have no standing in Krishna consciousness. That shouldn't be the case. Or if I think that Bhakti is not inherent and you think that Bhakti is inherent, okay, we can have a conversation. But I personally do not make much out of that. I don't think that should cancel the whole relationship, the whole potential of developing a conversation with someone and loving each other despite differences. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to France now. Divyangana. Can see you but not listen to you.
Yeah, sorry, I found it.
No.
Hare Krishna. It's good
Hare-
to be back.
Nice to have you back.
A lot of adventure. Yes, I had a question because I'm coming back from 2 months in India doing some parikrama. And I think when we come to spirituality at the beginning, we have this idea that it's gonna be peaceful and meditation and very calm and everything. And of course but then when you experience to do that, to do this pilgrimage, then it's all the opposite. It's, to be honest, there is a big part of it which is suffering. I don't want to scare people, but for me there was a lot of suffering, and this feeling that it's always a mix of chaos and with little moments of maybe some transcendence. I don't know how to express it. But for me, to be honest, it was disturbing to experience that it was so difficult and that it was pushing me into my limits sometimes strongly, even to the point that I have to say, okay, I have to take some rest now. And but I don't think it was a bad experience, like afterwards. that still there is something, but I'm wondering why it's like painful, and because I know it's not only my experience, and why is it so intense? Because I don't know, when usually we think about yoga and spirituality, we don't think about all this. So yes, I've heard some people say, oh, it's like purification, and you have to have like some kind of sacrifice, and you do some purification, or it's because of your. Some people say also it's because you are not fully surrender, and you still want to enjoy, and that's why in the holy dam then you have to suffer because you still want to enjoy. Very different things you can hear.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, that's my
Yeah,
question.
yeah. Okay.
What is happening in this process, and why is it so empty?
Why are you laughing, Jivan, over there? What's going on in your mind?
I was just thinking of the middle part, the struggle in between the chant and the be happy part. So I was sort of, that's where I was in the struggle.
Okay, thank you for clarification. So, what to say? A few things. First, it doesn't need to be that way. I wouldn't say that that's the only way it could be. I'm not familiar with the details of your experience, of course, but I'm familiar with that experience myself as well. So don't think that I don't know what you are talking about. I've been going to parikrama many times, and it has been exhausting many times, and it was kind of a running, not marathon, but it was because in marathon you kind of adjust the rhythm of your running so you can make it sustainable. But sometimes in some parikramas I've been past years, it was like running as much as you could and being in as many places per day and lots of people and dynamics. And personally, I don't think, I mean, not to criticize that also, because again, for some people, that's what they want, that's what they need, that's what works for them. So let's be careful about, again, labeling and saying, okay, this is the only way to do it. But I think it's good to be open that there are different ways to do it. And I personally don't think, though I will have subscribed to some of those quotes a few decades ago that you received, Divyangana, purification and this and that. Because again, it's the narrative one receives at one point, and it's how one chooses to see everything. Okay, if there is some problem, it's all your fault. It's not about we are overexerting here. It's just you are not pure enough, and that's why you're experiencing difficulties. At this point, I personally do not choose to necessarily frame it that way. Though there may be, of course, someone tells me you still have material desires. Of course, yes, of course. So it's not about denying that fact, but just how to say weaponizing that to just justify exhaustion, so to say, or to justify whatever. I don't think it's healthy. It's in potentially it opens the door for all forms of abuse. Again, you are not surrendered enough, no? And I'm like, okay, but this guru is misbehaving with the opposite sex. Oh, you don't have enough faith. That's why you're having doubts. I'm taking an extreme example, which I've gone through. So anything and everything can be justified with that type of narrative. Again, what I was saying just a moment ago, you are a conditioned soul. You don't know. You have material desires. That's why you're suffering. You are not surrendered enough. If not, you will be in ecstasy. You are not grateful because you should be appreciating all this instead of complaining. Blah, blah, blah. So again, I agree that for some people, intense pilgrimage dynamics is what they need. That's one thing. But for other people, that's not what they need. That's another thing. And the most important thing is, for those who need a more smooth ride, let's put it that way, we should not stigmatize them. We should not present it in a way as if you are wrong because you are not fitting in with us. Something like that. It's like if I say, okay, let's do Ekadasi, no nirjal, no eating, no sleeping. And some people may do it well, and some others are like, And I can't say, oh, that's due to your material conditioning that you cannot go through this Ekadasi with full dignity. I mean, that for me, that will be violence for me to say that. That's not sensitive. That's not compassionate. But also, of course, we are responsible for which type of parikrama we want to make, where we choose to go, how we want to make it. It's not that we are forced to do it in one way or another also. Of course, I understand if you join a group, they have certain dynamics and you subscribe to that. But if you later experience those dynamics are, I don't know, affecting my physical and mental health, one may need to do some adjustment. I'm not against doing some sacrifice, of course. I'm not saying just let your parikrama be fully from the comfort zone. No, that doesn't exist. The very moment you land of India, you're out of your comfort zone. Just by being in India. What to speak of entering the Dham? You are already out of your comfort zone. So why adding extra layers outside of the comfort zone when you already have enough things to deal with? Just being there. Because again, you are in the Dham, you are in a place which is very sacred, which has a lot of purity in the environment, lots of energy. So that in itself may be challenging. That may create a contrast between where I may be internally and what's going on, what's the ultimate reality. That may be enough struggle for us to be in the Dham, just to be there. Another something bad as a healthy confrontation. So if in top of that we add extremely exhausting daily dynamics and not good resting, not good eating, not time for introspection and sharing, and I'm not saying that was your case in all of that, I'm just giving an extreme example, that will make things very complicated. No? And I've seen people returning traumatized by some of these pilgrimages, where you want to see them transformed, inspired, empowered, with increased faith, and they're like, I will never return to India in this lifetime and probably ever. And it was like, oops, what happened there? So yeah, I just want to make it clear, be careful not to standardize and think, okay, pilgrimage means only this. Now, unless I end up destroyed and exhausted, it was not parikrama. No, that's not the case. Again, it's healthy to push beyond our boundaries on some level. I remember myself doing that, especially when I did this Dandavat parikrama in Govardhan. That was definitely outside of my comfort zone. And I really pushed my boundaries as much as I could. But there was a point that I collapsed. And I had to honor my limitations also. That was part of my parikrama also. I mean, I'm going to Holy Land. I have to behave with integrity in a sacred land. So part of that is honor my limitations. Push beyond my boundaries, yes. Sacrifice, yes. Challenging, yes. But again, in a sustainable way, in a way that I can be present, in a way that I can be learning, in a way that I'm not disturbed enough, that I'm just suffering all day and trying then to rationalize, well, but it helped. I somehow surely got purified somehow or other. I'm sure, yes, but also I need to be in the present moment with enough presence. No? So for that, we need some degree of comfort, even if we want to use that word. No, we have these three circles, as I like to think. Like you have the comfort zone, a bigger circle is the learning zone, but a bigger, if you will, and a further away circle is the panic zone. So sometimes in the name of living the comfort zone, we end up in the panic zone. Or panic zone may be collapse zone. You name it as you want, no? Like too much zone. We don't want to end up there in the name of leaving the comfort zone. We want to go to the learning zone. No? It's a stage in between. Again, it's not an extreme. It's in between comfort zone and panic zone. It's the in-between zone. It's not just the extreme. So that applies to pilgrimage. That applies to everything we do. That goes beyond pilgrimage, or in another way, all of our life is a pilgrimage. So you have to make your pilgrimage sustainable, whether it's in the Dham, whether it's in France, whether it's in whatever you may be. So yeah, we shouldn't forget the words of Krishna in the Gita, Shushrukam Kartum. Bhakti has to be performed joyfully, which again doesn't mean make a facade of all day smile. I'm not saying he's not saying that, but overall there has to be some joy, some gratitude, some appreciation of what's going on. The struggle doesn't need to be to the extreme. Sometimes it will be to the extreme out of certain life circumstances that we may need to go through. But if we go to a Dham and to a parikrama, I will personally consider to make things in a way that is sustainable for everyone, so everyone can have a healthy experience, knowing, again, just by being in India, what to speak of the Dham, they will have already enough challenges, enough cultural contrast to process, and so many other things, the weather, the food, the language. I mean, there are so many layers that are simultaneously being like accommodated and internalized. So again, I'm talking in general, Divyangana. I'm not aware of all the details of your own personal experience, but I'm just talking in general, and I hope something of that applies to your case and may help, and you can still have some faith in pilgrimage.
No, but I do. It's worth it for the
Great.
place I've seen. It's
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah. Again, and again, I agree with tapasya, austerity, challenge, pushing. But again, everyone has their limits, and I think it's healthy, going back to what we were talking before, if someone is at some point experiencing some limitation or some need to rest or some need to whatever, being careful not treating each other like just, oh, that's your material desires, you are not purified enough, it's your fault, and adding to the difficulty that the person already is dealing with. So whatever I offer as a feedback has to be in a way that is helping the person to deal with the difficulty that they are already dealing with, not just throwing a whole other layer of difficulty to integrate. Right.
But
Okay.
if I may specify a little bit my question.
Okay.
If it's okay. It's I was wondering, this, as you said, this idea of sacrifice, that there is this idea that for spiritual process we have to like suffer a little bit, or you said getting out of the comfort zone, right?
Yes.
So for me, yes, it's some part of the question is I'm wondering, why is it like this?
Mm-hmm.
If there is an answer.
Mm-hmm. Why there is like this? Again, when we speak about because we are talking as conditioned beings, right? We are not in Golok Vrindavan absolutely enlightened. So we know that there are some tendencies in us that tend us to self-centeredness. We tend us to situations where we're not that willing to see what needs to be seen. So sometimes we need to make some conscious effort to go there. No, that may not happen spontaneously yet. Hopefully it's going. If it's happening, it's happening. So my point is, what we perceive as a sacrifice now, at the end, we won't see it as a sacrifice. It will be natural. No? But now it's felt as suffering because maybe we are attached to that, whatever that may be. It's difficult for us to let that go. And that's what we need to go through to realize a deeper truth. And when we realize that, we no longer have that problem. So that no longer is a suffering for us. That no longer is a sacrifice. Mm-hmm. ultimately in the highest stage, we will say that the gopis in Vrindavan, let's say, are willing to do the greatest sacrifice, but they never perceive that they are doing a sacrifice, right? It just flows spontaneously from them because they love Krishna so passionately, and they follow that call, and whatever happens in the context of that. But they are not thinking consciously, I have to make a sacrifice in this connection. We have to do that. That's why Srila Siddhar Maharaj will make the difference between self-sacrifice and self-forgetfulness in divine love. Self-sacrifice. I'm conscious that I have to sacrifice to make this effort to move beyond this unhealthy pattern, whatever that may be. I'm aware, I'm conscious, and it's difficult, and it offers some pain, but I know with my intelligence this is necessary and helpful for me. That's one thing. And self-forgetfulness in divine love is just like, you are no longer thinking about doing sacrifice because you have forgot about yourself, because you are so absorbed in giving pleasure to the object of your affection. But we cannot imitate that. So we will reach there by sacrifice. But again, the sacrifice has to be in a way that is sustainable and loving. And we always talk about being loving. So we have to be loving to everyone, including ourselves. As contradictory as that may sound, we have to do sacrifice in a self-loving way. Self-love and self-compassion doesn't mean no sacrifice. And sacrifice doesn't mean no self-compassion. Again, we have to learn to integrate the two. Actually, if I'm doing a sacrifice with proper awareness, it's for my best interest. And that will be a form of self-compassion because I'm providing what's best for me. Anyhow, I hope that helps. And we are almost on time, and I'm seeing that Rasangi raised her hand so late. Rasangi, why?
Just a quick thing, anecdotal. You know,
Okay.
like Guru Das Prabhu told me that they were
Guru
walking
Das.
without shoes in India.
Guru Das.
Guru Das.
Yes.
And they were getting scratches and wounds and walking. It was very painful. Prabhupada said, put your shoes on. There's enough austerity in the world already. There's enough austerity in life already. So, you know what I mean? If we go back, we see how Prabhupada behaved, or very compassionately. We're not about like this asceticism, this stoicness. And I'm reminded even of Buddha, Gautama Buddha Siddhartha, when he came out of the palace, he went and did austerities. But he got so sick and weakened that he chose the middle path. And that's what we're supposed to do too, right? A middle path. We're not austere. We're not diving in. We're on the middle path, detached, but living in this world. So, yeah. And I'm looking at that Krishna was Buddha, and it's an evolution of spirituality and religion. So we can take the good from there, what we've learned, and apply it on our journey now.
Yeah.
That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, as we always say, Bhakti is not about renunciation. Bhakti is not about austerity and penance. But in the context of giving ourselves to Krishna in love, there is something to release. There is something to renounce. And that will be our sacrifice. But it's all in the context of loving and giving myself. It's not just sacrifice for the sake of sacrifice. No, it's not. And that will create suffering out of what we need to let go. It's part of the journey. It's not that Krishna wants us to suffer, that we have to earn the love of God by suffering. There's no way to earn the love of God by anything. No? Divine love is not earnable. It's unconditional. It's too much to be earned. It's much to be deserved. So it's again, we have to be careful not falling into these patterns of, okay, if I do the parikrama with my barefoot, I will gain more credit, and that will take me close. I mean, it's not a calculator machine that we earn. That's not how God is not a good mathematician. No, he's not about calculating and adding points, and it's another logic. It's another code, right? So, yeah, what better facilitates our sincere giving of ourselves? That's what's favorable at any given moment, and that may take different shapes at different times for different people. Yeah. Okay, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Harinam Prabhu ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda